Good afternoon, and my name is Thuy Lowe. I am a conservative candidate for U.S. Congress in the Florida's 10th Congressional District. My family called Orlando home almost 50 years ago when a church in Winter Park sponsored our family out of a refugee camp at Eglin Air Force Base. We came to America as legal immigrants with nothing but the clothing on our back and pictures from our past when a helicopter airlifted us out of Saigon, Vietnam on that last day and onto the USS Midway. It was April 30th, 1975. My family ran from communism and socialism. Today, I am proud to be an American.
Role that you're doing now?
Well, I was very involved parent when my children were in the public education system. And I was a mentor to our students for almost 6, 7 years. And I worked in the public education as a volunteer for a number of years. And I was basically spending about 40 hours a week in the public education system. I learned how education worked and where the money was coming from. So because of my involvement in public school way back when, I have been very involved in politics. And so after my children graduated from the public education system, I became more involved in politics. I ran for Congress in 2016 in Congressional District 10 against Val Demings. And in that election, it put Val Demings on the map as where she is today. And in 2020, I was so passionate about the American First policy because today I am an immigrant and I'm a legal immigrant, but I'm also an American and I am an American. So I would not go back to Vietnam to live there or any other country. This is my country. This is where I raise my children. And I want to make sure that we are leaving a legacy and a better future for our kids, not only mine, but the future generation as well. Because of what's going on in politics today with a crisis in the supply chain globally and with the surging fuel cost and scarce shortage in food supply, as well as the record high inflation. I can no longer sit on the sidelines and watch the debate what's good for America. So at about 3-4 weeks ago, I decided to jump back into this race. It is in CD10. It is in Central Florida. It is my home. It is where I learned to speak English. It's where I graduated from high school. It is where I graduated from college at University of Central Florida. And I want to make sure that I serve and protect the people in this district because this is my home.
Great. What did you learn from the last time you ran, and how did that improve you?
In 2016, I learned a lot in this district. The district has changed quite a bit during the last redistricting, which was a couple months ago. It is still a Democratic district. It's still very blue, 2-1 Democrats over Republicans. But because of the political environment today, and because the fact that the Democrats don't own anything, own the crisis in our country today, the economy today, the high inflation today, that's what they own. They don't own anything else. So I think that we have a very good chance of winning this district in this coming midterm election. In terms of my values with this, I want to make sure that we resolve and we find opportunities for the housing crisis here in CD10. We want to make sure that we offer more education opportunities in terms of school choice for our residents here, because we want to make sure that we're raising the future of our leaders, not bringing down the quality of education. I want to make sure that the crime rate is low so people will be protected. I mean, my goal is to make sure that I am vigilantly protecting our physical and financial security of not only our district, but for the American people.
Great.
Protecting our physical and financial security of not only our district, but for the American people.
Great, great. Can we get into more of your plans? How you're gonna combat these things?
So, look, we have issue with high fuel costs at the moment. We need to make sure that we're reopen the XL pipelines. Okay, we need to be responsible for the fuel exploration in our country. We are rich in natural resources. Reserve our fuel here at home. We cannot sending our reserve fuels overseas. That's what the Biden administration is doing. While Americans are suffering, they're paying outrageous price at our pump. President Biden is sending reserve to overseas. And I get it. A lot of people are talking about, oh, what about the solar energy or wind energy? I think that we should continue to look into it. But at the moment, our infrastructure for solar and for wind power are not there. So we need to make sure that we have our fossil fuel ready and available for the American people. Especially if you're, going to start we're going to start buying more electric cars. Where do you think that power is coming from right now?
Right.
So I think for for reducing the fuel costs, we need to make sure that we become energy independent, and for pulling for national debt, we have to look at that as well. Our country right now has a national debt of $31 trillion and it's counting. So when are we going to stop spending the money that the taxpayers that's supposed to belong to our taxpayers? Do we need to send that 40 plus or $50 billion to assist Ukraine? I don't think we need to do that. We have other sources that we can assist Ukraine with. We have ships in the area. We can send our ships and while we're not engaging in the war against Russia, we can use our ships and we can use that as a practicing mission with our ships that are already in that area. We can use satellites and to assist Ukraine with more information source, more technology. We have the capability right now all over the world. Why are we sending $40-50 billion overseas when our debt ceiling is going out of control? Who's going to be paying for that? Is you and me and the future of America. And until we reduce our expenses and our costs and our purchase or squandering of our tax dollars, we can't reduce that inflation. We can't reduce that, we can't lower the debt ceiling. And that's, I think, one of the biggest problem with our economy today. The government needs to stop to slow down expenditure.
Let's talk about poverty, right? About homeless. How would you combat that?
Many years ago, when I was just leaving college, I got into a business called Central Transit System. It was a people mover business. Mm-hmm. And when I first initially started that business with $50, just right out of college, I partnered with the federal government. It was the urban mass transportation at the time in the late 80s. And my project at the time was to provide transportation to low-income residents so that they can have work opportunities. Mm-hmm. I provided transportation to them to and from work every day, and the employers, their employers paid for part of that transportation cost. What I learned was the programs that we have, the welfare programs that we have in place, are not there to give people a hand up, but a perpetual hand out. A lot of parents, a lot of people, a lady, 21 years old with 8 children. And the reason was at the time, the more children she has, the more money she gets from our welfare program. If she has to work and make X number of dollars every month, she would lose those benefits and welfare program. We need to tighten and we need to revisit the welfare program and make sure that we offer a hand up for our for the people as opposed to perpetual handout. We need to get people back to work. We have businesses now that are really in need of employees. They cannot find employees. I talk to employers every single day, and they couldn't believe that even $15 an hour there cannot find employees. And we have a lot of people out there who are unemployed. So we need to have a conversation of what the welfare program is supposed to, how it's supposed to work for the American people. And also, a lot of those who are homeless, because many of them fall under mental health recipients. How do we combat mental health recipients? We need to have more programs. We need to have more funding to help those that are in need of such. And for those who are homeless because, and we are going to see more as the economy is sinking and as the cost of goods and services rises, we are going to see a lot of issues with our families. They're not going to be able to put food on the table. They're not going to be able to keep roof over their families. So we are going to talk to the community and trying to figure out what's the best solution to solve that problem, homelessness problem with our community and with the people on the street.
Great, great. How do you feel about representation, Asian community or Asian people in the higher level?
You know, I'm the first generation immigrant, and today immigrants have come a long way since 1776, you know, with our Declaration of Independence. Today, immigrants like Asians, we can own property as opposed to back in the 1920s and 1940s. Asians were not able to own properties. And I'm not sure if you are aware that even Florida law is called alien land law that was just recently reversed a couple years ago. The voters reversed it. But that alien land law restricted Asians from owning properties here in the 1920s and all the way up to a couple years ago, but a lot of that's unconstitutional law, and so it was not enforced. But Asians today need to be more visible. We need to be more visible in politics. We need to be more visible in the community. We need to be more visible in Hollywood, so we can bring a voice to our community.
Let's go to about the education system. What's your stand on education critical race theory?
So the critical race theory is something that supposedly it started out, I would say maybe 40, 50, 60 years ago as a conversation about how Black Americans were being treated back then. And that conversation has been a dialogue here, I would say maybe since the 60s, if not earlier. But today, the liberal left use critical race theories to inject issue of sexuality into schools. They're using critical race theory to force the issue, sexual and homosexual issue, to our students who are from kindergarten to third grade. That's up to eighth grade. And that is I think it's unethical that we're confusing our kids with that type of conversation. Critical race theories also today is a backlash on white Americans, where they claim that white Americans, if you're white, you're evil, you should be ashamed of the color of your skin. This is infringing upon one's constitutional rights. So critical race theory is nothing more than a liberal left ideology to instill hatred into Americans, divided Americans. It's time for us to unite Americans. It doesn't matter what color of the skin you are. You are created equal under God, and you are created equal under our Constitution, that it says all men, and should be women, are created equal. And critical race theories does nothing more than reverse that. So I don't support critical race theory.
Understood. Do you see anything in the education system needs to be changed?
Education system, unfortunately, is trying to raise our students, quote unquote, to the top. But as someone who had been so involved in education for a number of years, it focused more on the lower quartile and not as much on the upper quartile of our student population. So we're so focused on trying to teach our students of reading, writing, and arithmetic, and not so much as innovations, science, math, reading, actually writing. So I think that we, as a public education system, they need to put more funding for those students are at the upper quartile. And also, I would like to see more money, more support with school choice, because I think that parents, regardless of where you live, regardless of where you come from, parents should have a school choice, so they can see where the best fit of education system, programs, curriculums for their students and their children.
Yeah, that's the next question I'm getting at is do you believe parents should be more involved in school curriculum?
As a pro-family candidate, I have the same belief as most Asian parents. I believe today, I hope today, that I have the same beliefs and values in being parenting, raising your family, and not pushing that responsibility to public education or public institution, because at the end of the day, I want to make sure that I instill our Asian conservative values to our children that I don't see that's happening in the public education.
Okay. Here's a really topic. It's really a hard topic to talk about, right? One other topic is about guns, and that's been going on around the country. Could you shed some light on that, and what's your thoughts and how you feel about that?
Two things. I think that our basic rights and freedom is constantly under assault, and we need to protect that. And we're seeing that in freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and freedom to bear arms. We as Americans have that right and freedom to protect ourselves. When people talk about gun rights, they don't, they only, well, they talk about the shootings that we hear, the mass shootings that we are hearing today in the media. They don't talk about the shootings in the inner cities. They don't talk about how many inner city folks having to need guns to protect themselves from the violence they live in. They don't talk about that. You know, when Americans are qualified to go to war or to enlist in the armed services at 18, and now we're saying you can enlist to go to war, but you cannot allow or ready to have your gun when you're 18, I think that's wrong. You know, that's being hypocritical, and number one. And number two, The red line law that was recently passed is it does nothing more than attacking one's freedom of choice, one's freedom to bear arms, because the law basically says that you don't have the ability to defend yourself. Bottom line, if you or your neighbor have an argument and your neighbor called the police on you and claimed that you're crazy or you're going wild and that you're mentally unstable, they will arrest you. They will come and take your arms away from you, your guns away from you, without giving you the rights to defend yourself. And that is wrong, wrong, wrong in every level. So I think that with the situations we've seen today with the mass shootings, it's heartbroken to, and my heart breaks every time I hear or I see on the news of deaths caused by gun violence. And so we want to solve the problem. We want to really look into solving it and understand why this happened. Let's look at mental health issues. Who on earth would go out there and kill anyone unless there's a mental problem associated with that perpetrator? We have millions and millions and millions of people own guns. You don't see that. You only see a handful of people, or maybe a dozen, less than 1% of people out there that are causing harm or bodily harm to their communities. Well, let's try to understand why we're doing that, or they're doing that, to solve the real issue out there and stop taking guns away from legal citizens here in America.
Great. How do you feel being a candidate? How does that make you feel?
As I mentioned earlier today, I'm a legal immigrant from Vietnam. And today we have so much to be thankful for. Our rights today, I'm so blessed to be able to enjoy the freedom and the rights afforded in our Constitution. Today, legal immigrants like myself can own properties, can become a U.S. citizen so we can vote, hold public offices, and basically enjoy all the rights afforded to everyone in our Constitution. We have to agree that there are more work that needs to be done to ensure that everyone has the fair chance, everyone has the equal opportunities to excel and to live here in America, to be an American, and to take care of our family.
Great. Being in Orlando for a long time, right?
Yes.
You mentioned, what kind of changes would you like for in Orlando to better the city?
Orlando is growing, and it's growing leaps and bounds since 45 years ago. And with that, it comes with growing pain. And today we look at the basic issue that we have in Orlando as we would have any urban and suburban areas around the country. We look at the high fuel costs. We look at the inflation. We look at the housing crisis. And we look at the education system. And regardless if you're Asians or you're Blacks or if you're Hispanics or if you're white, these problems impact all of us as a community. So we need to make sure that we address that. When I am elected into Congress as the representative in this district and as a representative for all Americans, I want to make sure that I will be their voice and make sure that we continue to fight and protect our freedom, our family, and those who work here. live here, play here, and raise our family here.
Great. I think that's all the question I have. We appreciate you being here and your time. Really appreciate it so much.
Well, thank you so much for coming all the way up here and talking to me today. And I hope that the folks who are watching would take a look at our campaign. Again, my name is Thuy Lowe. I am a candidate for U.S. Congress in Congressional District 10. I am an American First candidate because I believe in America. I believe that we need to take care of our own first with our policies, with our actions, because at the end of the day, this is going to impact those who are living in America. So I am an America's First candidate. And I hope that the people will support my campaign. And please visit my webpage at thuylowforcongress.com and also lowforcongress.com.
Great.
And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.